Hello. Today I'm reading My Farm. Well, I'm going to start reading. I think it'll take a couple of goes to get through because it's quite a long book. Before I start, I just wanted to say that this book has some things that happen on farms that some kids might find upsetting. So if you're worried, maybe look at the video first before you share it with your children. I did this book a long time ago in 1992, and this actual copy is quite special. It's dedicated, it says, to Mum and Dad for a wonderful childhood, but it's also inscribed to Nan and Don with lots of love from Podge, that's me. So this was the copy that I gave them when the book first came out all those years ago. And my friend and editor, Ros Price, had been wanting me to do a book about life on the farm for a while, and Mum had been telling me that too. And so I'd started to keep a big folder of all the things that had happened on the farm when I was a kid, and then all the things that my kids did on our little farm. And one day Ros came out and we sat down and figured out how we could put them into a book. We thought about having collections of dogs and horses and different things like that, but the story of the little girl and the pony she was wanting for seemed to be the strongest, so it turned into this book, which is a book about a year on a farm. It says, when I was little, I lived on a farm overlooking the sea. Through summer, autumn, winter and spring, we worked on the land together. Mum, Dad, Charlie, Kate, Jake and me. This is a bit of a fib because Mum was actually stuck in the house most of the time cooking and doing all that boring stuff. We rode our horses every day and loved them like friends. The year my old pony died, Charlie let me ride his horse while he used the motorbike. Tricky was all right, but I really missed Inky. In summer, we checked the water troughs to make sure the thirsty cattle had enough to drink. Sometimes we drove the old jinka and stopped for a swim along the way. A jinka's like a little cart that a horse pulls, so you can see them there having a dip in the shady trough. We shifted mobs of cattle to better pasture and sorted out some that were ready to sell. On market days, huge trucks backed up to the dusty stockyards. Dogs barked, bullocks bellowed, whips cracked, and we yelled, "Oi, oi, oi, get up," and "hoo" to drive the cattle up the ramp. One moonlit night, a truck arrived with some new cows. I went up to the yards with my father to unload them. Something spooked the cattle, and in a flash they were racing down the road. I chased them on Tricky, riding bareback in my pyjamas, and finally brought them home. I felt like a real hero. It was very exciting. Late in summer, bushfires sometimes broke out in the hills. The smoke cast an eerie yellow light over our farm. We kept a water tank on the truck in case one of the paddocks caught fire. Blackberries were ripe for picking then, and the apples in the orchard were crunchy and delicious. The local show was always a big day for us. It took weeks to get ready. We washed the stud bulls and cows and taught them how to parade. We brushed our ponies until they shone and plaited their manes and tails. Dad taught Tricky to jump. Jake practiced his tricks on Bella, doing leapfrogging, and trained Sadie for the dog high jump. I can remember when we took Sadie to the Pakenham show for the dog high jump. My best friend Maggie double dinked with me and we won the quietest pony contest, but Charlie took the ribbon because Tricky was his horse. I really wished I had my own pony. Dad's bull was the grand champion that year and Sadie came third in the dog high jump. And there you can see the girls showing the judges why their pony is the quietest. He's so quiet he can be one end of a skipping rope. In autumn, the trees turned orange and red. We galloped through the fallen leaves, sending them spinning behind us. New cattle arrived from the snowy mountains, and Dad and Uncle Jack drove them down the beach to spend winter on the bush run. When the cows began to calve, we had to check them at least twice a day. Once I found an abandoned calf and carried him home on Tricky. Mum made a bed for the shivering baby in front of the stove, and I fed him warm milk from a bottle. He sucked my fingers with his raspy tongue. Can you see the calf there? She's got it over the front of the saddle. And she's feeding the little calf in front of the stove. Sometimes the calf died and we had to find a new baby for its mother. Dad bought an orphan calf from our neighbour and dressed it in a jacket made from the dead calf's skin. The cow recognised the smell of her own calf and adopted the orphan. If a cow needed help to give birth, we'd drive her slowly to the yards. Mum delivered the calf, just like a doctor delivering a baby. I was the assistant, patting the cow and soothing her with my voice. Sometimes I felt frightened, but it was always thrilling to see the tiny newborn calf. After the first autumn rains, mushrooms popped up in the paddocks. We would trudge for miles with knives and buckets, searching for a whopper or a perfect fairy ring. We drove the cattle to the yards again to be dipped and drenched. The mud was as sticky as glue. Once Kate got so stuck she came right out of her boots. We didn't need to buy much meat from the butcher because we had our own. None of us liked to be around when Dad killed a sheep, but we all loved to help with the cutting up. We punched off the skin and investigated the insides. The dogs and cats waited for tidbits. On frosty mornings, the mist crept into the valleys, and I'd pretend we lived on a Norwegian fjord. So they're all going off to catch the bus to school. When rainstorms flooded the flat country, Jake and I loved racing through the water. I always got splattered with mud because Tricky was so slow. I thought about the quicksilver pony I'd like to have. By the time we reached home, we had such cold hands, Mum had to unbuckle our bridles. We fed out hay in the cold winter months when the paddocks were bare. The cattle ran after the truck bellowing for food. If the grass was very slippery, we'd hold on to baling twine and water ski behind the truck. We plaited the used twine into long skipping ropes. I think I'll stop here and I'll do the second half of the book tomorrow. So thank you very much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll continue tomorrow. Bye-bye.